Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Board With Each Other, the board gaming review podcast that looks at board games and asks the question, how well does this play at two? Whether that's with your significant other, your BFF, or that really annoying other builder that keeps putting scaffolding up at everything you attempt within the cathedral that you've been commissioned to build. Today we are...
I'm glad you didn't go down the pre-street.
Yeah, so am I. I took the high road there. I am joined, as ever, by my wife, my co-host, and my player too, Hannah Kelly.
Hi, guys.
And today we are reviewing Basilica, or as I like to call it, Angry Carcassonne. But I'm going to pause for the laugh track.
Oh, yeah, okay, carry on.
Basilica is a tile and worker placement game where you take the role of a builder or an architect that is building a basilica. Clues in the name. You build your cathedral by taking up to 3 actions on your turn. These can include taking a cathedral tile, so you have a marketplace of 3 coloured tiles, some of them have 2 colours on, which are wild tiles, and placing it down on the cathedral, which is basically your playing space.
So 5 by 5?
Yeah, it's five columns or rows or whatever across, and you just sort of build down across the table in those 5 columns. Or you can take an order from the order tiles. All of the tiles are double-sided, so one side has cathedral tiles, the colour of the cathedral, the other has orders on them. And again, you have an active marketplace of 3 of these. Or if you have just placed a tile down, you can place a builder on that tile for your second action. So that's where the sort of worker placement comes in. When you place tiles down, some of them have a +1 marker on them, and this means that you move a queen pawn across the scoreboard. The scoreboard has 30 points on it. Every time the queen reaches a tens space, a 10, 20 or 30, you undertake scoring.
Immediately ends the round.
Yeah, immediately ends the round, even if you're only taking 1 action. Scoring works by area majority. So you basically draw a invisible circle around all of the adjacent tiles of the same colour, including wild tiles that have two colours on, and you count how many builders each player has in that area. The one with the majority wins 1 point per tile in that area. The one with the minority gets 1 point per builder. So far, so Carcassonne. Mm-hmm. Where this game is a bit more complicated is through the orders system. Mm-hmm. So the orders allow you to do a variety of things. They allow you to move your builders around, of which you have 5, by the way. They allow you to destroy tiles as long as somebody's builder is not on there. They allow you to promote your builders, and there's a variety of promotions that you can apply to them. So, for example, you can apply a promotion that makes your builder count as 2 people. You can apply one that means you win any ties, for example.
On some of your orders, there is a little coin, and that means that if you play, for example, to promote your builder, your opponent can then pay a coin to also promote one of their builders.
In a different promotion
In a different promotion. Yeah. You only start the game with 1 coin, and that coin
goes back and forth between the players. Yeah. You each have 1 coin.
You each have 1 coin.
So somebody can end up with 2.
Yes.
Yeah. The game continues until the queen pawn has reached the 30 space, or you have exhausted the entire stack of tiles twice. Mm-hmm. That brings the end of the game.
Probably an important thing to note is that the stack of tiles are always played with the order face up.
Yeah, so
you can always see what your next both colour will be and also what the next order is.
But only one.
But only,
you see one ahead. And you refresh the marketplace as soon as you take something, so it cycles immediately, basically. There are a couple of extra things to mention. You can place stained glass on tiles. When you make, if you put stained glass on a tile, it adds a value of 2 to the area, and it doesn't matter who wins. So if you place it down, your opponent gets a majority, they get the points. And the edition that we've got is a reprint of the original that they released a couple of years ago. And it comes with a mini expansion, which is around altars. And you can put altars down, which basically prevent your pawns from being messed with, and also doubles the value of any stained glass on that area. That's all there is to it in terms of expansion. At the end of each, I wouldn't call it, perhaps it is called a round, when you reach 10, 20 and 30, the top 2 rows of the cathedral basically get wiped.
Really shoddy builders.
Yes, it just all falls down. But yes, you wanted scaffolding. We haven't mentioned. Do you want Do you want to tell me what about scaffolding?
So yes, you can take a scaffolding order, which allows you to put down 2 scaffolding tiles, and that can be quite helpful if you're trying to block off an opponent from making this huge, big, massive swathe, and that just blocks off those 2 routes.
Yeah, and builders also can't be put on scaffolding tiles. So, for example, you have an order that you can take a builder back and then move one of your opponent's builders, and you can actually use scaffolding to stop that happening in a way.
Yeah.
You can block off them being moved out in an area that way. So, yeah, it's got quite a few uses. So, yeah, runtime. How long are games? How long should games be?
How long? What does it say on the box? 45 minutes. I mean, I don't think that's... I think that's about right.
That's
45
about
minutes to an hour, I reckon.
Yeah, I would say so. And although we haven't mentioned it yet, this is a 2-player only game. This is a duel.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I picked this up on a whim in the great Game UK has Gone Mad sale of 2024. It was just sitting on the shelves. Oh, okay, I'll get that, building cathedrals, tile placement.
And,
this will wind up my wife.
Yeah, I think you did sell it to me as Carcassonne, but a bit more involved and a bit more of an option to fuck with your opponent.
Yeah.
I was all in.
Which it kind of is. Yeah. You may want to go back to our episode on Carcassonne for some additional reference on Hannah's opinions about Carcassonne.
Yeah, Carcassonne's not my favourite.
So yeah, this was a complete whim-based purchase. Because nothing wows your wife like coming home with a board game about cathedral building.
I mean, to be fair, you also brought one home about building tram lines, so,
Again, San Francisco, another episode for context there. Not had a good hit rate with that sale.
No.
So anyway, is there anything you want to mention before we crack on with scoring?
Let's just crack on, shall we? Mm-hmm. So, under our general scoring categories, the first one is components, and that includes things like setup, board space, and obviously the actual parts themselves. So it's got some really lovely, nice little wooden...
the pawns and the builders.
I think they're really lovely, and they're quite sturdy and chunky, and they're nice. I like them. What really irritates me is the queen is just an oversized pawn.
Is that not what a queen is, though? This is a politics podcast. Let's move on.
But it annoys me because she's the same colour as the ones that you play with.
She is, yes.
And that just annoys me.
She should be a different colour.
She should be a different colour.
I mean, it's a weird thing to get annoyed about, but you do you. I mean, I was actually really pleasantly surprised when we cracked this open because it's actually quite well made. It's really nice,
yep.
Particularly the as you say the player pieces and the coins of these really like thick, chunky wooden tokens. It feels a little bit deluxe.
Anything that comes in wood, I think, automatically just feels a little bit nicer and also a little bit more sustainable. I think possibly,
yes.
Maybe I don't know.
Yes.
I take that back, actually. I don't know about the sustainability of wood versus cardboard. Let's just move swiftly along, shall we?
Okay, all right, yeah, again. Different meeting. But it's also one of those games that the insert is completely custom built for the game and everything fits back exactly in its right spot. Mm-hmm. There's no baggies required, anything like that. It just all fits neatly into the box, which is always a plus from me.
One of the things that does annoy me is, we talked about this huge stack of map pieces. It is a very large stack. You have to have them all in a row because obviously you have to
That's the way the game works.
That's the way the game works, and you have to be able to see what's on top. But because of that, it's quite easy to knock over.
Yeah, it's huge.
And it's huge. And in some ways, you kind of feel like you want a bag, but obviously you can't have a bag because you need to be able to see. And that doesn't work very well for me.
No, I have to agree with you. It annoys me as well. I mean, it's this enormous stack. It's very precarious. It is an absolute nightmare to shuffle them.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're basically trying to shuffle a huge, big stack of tiles. It's really unwieldy.
Yeah.
And it is by the nature, not like you can fix this by doing a bag or a bowl that you could dip into, because the nature of the game is you need to be able to see what's coming next. So there is no real solution for it. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
But that aside, I mean, setup is super quick. That aside, it's just that shuffling of that massive stack of tiles that's a real pain.
Do we talk about theme here? I think we asked this question every time.
Well, I think theme can come in anywhere, and I was going to talk about theme here. So
okay, you go for it.
Okay. I have no idea what this has got to do with building a cathedral.
No,
I'm going to straight up say it. Maybe I haven't been in enough basilicas, but this weird
You've not been around enough priests.
No, I'll just try and avoid them. this mishmash of randomly coloured tiles in some groupings and some not. It may as well be anything. Like,
Yep.
I fail to see. You know, in Carcassonne, you can see you're building a landscape, and it looks, the tile placement thing, it looks pretty at the end of it.
And you understand what your cities are
building
doing.
a quilt, you understand what it is. It looks like the thing it's meant to be. This is just, it's colours. And I don't understand.
Is it always supposed to be building a stained glass window?
No,
it's an actual cathedral.
no, because as far as I understand it, basilicas have these multicoloured floors or walls and things like that. But
It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it?
it is a bit of a stretch, and also they are very evenly placed, whereas this, you're grouping them, so it's just the splotches of colour. And it just does not translate at all for me. I don't get it.
And here's the other thing. So it relies very heavily on iconography, and we've talked about this a lot in the past. Once you get your head around the iconography, and then you're away. Sometimes that can be a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
Still, after all these games, I still do not understand the iconography on the order cards. And I think that's because it just bears no relevance to what we're doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are way too similar as well.
Yeah.
Like when you're like 10 turns deep, I've often confused things for other things and not done things because I've been like, oh no, that's that, and then I've realised, oh no, wait, that's the other one.
Yeah. So you're placing a builder, moving a builder, withdrawing a builder. They all look very, very similar.
Yes, yeah, they do all look very, very similar. And I think by the nature of some of them, especially with what happens when you pay a coin, or trying to make an extra rule clear. So, for example, the destruction one, where you remove a tile, has a builder on there with a no sign through it, but it just looks, it just makes it cluttered. And like when you see the builder on there, you think it's to do with something to do with the builder, not to do with
really.
destroying
You
a
can
tile.
only withdraw a tile that hasn't got a builder on it,
which should be just served by the rule book. It's not as clear as it should be, and I have to agree with you. For some reason, the iconography takes a lot longer to sink in, which should be quite simple.
It really should be, and it should be a lot more straightforward than it actually is. You've also got your promotion tokens as well, and you've got like a jester hat on there, and that's just bizarre. I mean, what's a jester got to do with anything?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's really mixed. It doesn't. The theme seems to be the art style seems to be very little to do with the theme. And a lot of the things just seem very sort of out of place.
And
why would builders be destroying other tiles within a cathedral that they were
That's why
contracted to build?
it falls down. That's why you lose your first two floors.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also just not very pretty.
No, it's not. It tends to look very clunky and just these washes of colour with no real purpose. Again, the tiles look more like cushions than they do a floor.
Yes.
So yeah, the art style is
whack.
It's whack. Okay, sure, we'll go with that.
80s are calling.
Yeah. So yeah, I have to agree with you there, which means it's a real mixed bag for me because I think components-wise, it's really well made. It's nice. It's a decent package, but it's massively let down by the art style and the connection between theme and art style and theme and gameplay to a certain extent. Like it is so abstract, I just can't really put the two together. Yeah. So, what did you give it?
6.
I also gave it a 6.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, unanimous then. So on to our next category, and that's complexity. So, as always, it's not about how complex it is or it isn't, but it's how well the complexity serves the gameplay. We also talk about things like AP and how much we argue about the rules. I think, in itself, it's not particularly complicated.
No.
I think we've already kind of hit on the things that make it more complicated. So the fact that order tokens are really abstract and it's not always necessarily... I've made numerous mistakes because I just don't understand the order tokens. But actually, it is fairly easy and straightforward to teach, I think.
Yes, it is. Again, it's one of these rule books that comes across as much more labyrinthian than the actual game should be.
Explaining the promotions, that there is like about 3 pages, I think, dedicated to explaining how promotions work.
Yes.
Which is just a little bit overkill.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated.
Yeah, I think they could have done a much better job with the rules. Because it is a simple game at its core. It is not a heavy game. However, do you want to talk about AP?
Oh, Christ, yes. Oh, my gosh, it is brutal.
Yeah.
It is
this one...
absolutely brutal. And, I mean, I could spend 45 minutes, I think, just thinking about one turn.
Yeah.
That's not... It's not because you've got a huge amount of options that you can you've only got 3 things that you can do on your turn. They're relatively limited, but there is this element of having to, again, think about what the best move is for the current board state.
It's optimisation all the time.
Yes, optimisation all the time, but also whilst trying to block you, but also make things open for me. And I definitely really, really struggle, and again have to make a very conscious decision not to
get locked into
that headspace, and that's quite difficult for me, I think.
I've seen you struggle really badly with this one.
Yeah.
Like really, really
I think
badly.
probably one of the worst ones that I've come across for a really long time.
I would agree with that. This one really gets you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's you just get completely locked into your thoughts.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you are prone to that,
watch out.
Definitely be careful here, because it has a propensity for that. Absolutely. I think in terms of like the scoring and winning the game and what have you, I think the complexity is fine. I think the scoring gets a little while to get your head round, but I think once you get your head round it, it's okay.
I was going to talk about this under fun.
Okay, fine. But from my perspective, complexity-wise, I think that's all right. But I think we've touched upon it. There seems to be an iconography problem here, and perhaps a little bit of overwroughtness in a way.
Yeah.
That adds a little bit of unnecessary complexity to this. I mean, you joked about the jester hat. I've still never used that.
You have once.
Oh, did I once?
Yeah, you did, and you scored massively because of it.
Okay, fair enough. I stand corrected then. But there are bits to it that just... There almost seems like a bit too much at times.
And yet, I think that's what makes this potentially, or has the potential to be so much better than Carcassonne, because you have those orders that allow you to deliberately fuck with other people. I just think it's the way that it's been written and the way that it's presented
rules-wise.
It just makes it more complicated than it needs to be, or more off-putting than it needs to be.
Yeah, I think so. I think, like I said, this is a reprint. I think the original is like over 15 years old now, and I think things have come along quite a way. But I think there's been a lack of care with updating the new version, because I was incredibly confused when in the setup it talks about everybody getting 4 promotion tokens, and it took quite a lot of research to find out that no, indeed, in the new version you only have 3, but they haven't updated the rulebook to reflect that. So there's little bits like that where I think the rulebook could have been rewritten, trimmed down, a bit more care taken with the reprint to actually go, oh no, this is a bit over, the rulebook's coming across a bit overwrought, let's trim this down. Things have moved on quite a lot in the last 15 years, and I don't think it's captured that for some reason.
Yeah. I don't think, though, I think that's a components issue, really, particularly. Really more than, the actual rules itself.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what did you give it for complexity then?
So I scored it quite high despite the AP.
Okay.
So I scored it a 7 because I think it has the potential to be a really, really good game, and I think I'm aware that AP is my issue,
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
So I didn't really want to mark it down because of that. So I scored it a 7.
Okay, I give it a 6.
Okay.
Because I do think it's a bit overwrought.
Okay.
I think it's got a couple of rules it doesn't need.
Yeah.
And I think that's to its detriment.
Yeah.
Okay. What about shelf life and value for money then?
Well, I think it always helps if we start by talking about the price points. What does this retail at?
25 to 30, depending on where you go.
So I'm just going to put my hands up here and say this is not my favourite game ever, and we'll come to the reasons why it's not my favourite game ever. So I think, for me, am I going to play it again? Probably not. Do I think it's worth that in terms of value for money? Oof. Maybe.
I think this at full RRP is skirting the boundary of what I'm prepared to pay for it, I have to say. I think while it's nicely made, I can get much more bang for my buck for that amount.
I think 25 is reasonable. I think if you go anything above that, then probably not great value for money. However, again, I don't like this straight off the bat. But I don't think it's a bad game, and I think for other people, there's a huge amount of replayability behind it. Because what I've also noticed is that every time we play, we both get better and better, and it's that constant, I think, you're learning and you're growing together, and, for that reason, I think probably some people would really, really like it.
Yeah, I think your mileage may vary. I do like this kind of game. I am bored of this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm done with it. Because you have to sit there and wait 15 minutes for me to place one tile.
Might be part of it, but I don't think it's the whole story. I would go back to Carcassonne 100 times. I don't think I will ever go back to this.
Oh, do you know, I would rather play this than Carcassonne.
Fair enough, but not for me. I just think once you've seen all the mechanisms working, you will reach a fork in the road where you either love how it plays to a point that you're willing to take the dive in and keep playing and getting better and better, or you might just get a bit bored. And I think one of the issues for me with this, and I'll say it here instead of in fun, is I think it goes on too long. I think it's too long for what it is. I think if the game was half the length, I would probably return to it a lot easier. But it eats up an entire evening of board gaming usually.
Yeah, but I think that's, again, because I sit there and deliberate and pontificate so long. I think what's really interesting is that first round, if you like, that takes the longest because it's such an open, clean slate. I think
it does speed up as you go on. Yeah,
it speeds up as you go on, and because I've already got a footprint, actually, that freeform open worldness is gone. So actually, it's a lot easier and it's a lot quicker for me. And so I think, and that's when it becomes more fun to then start messing with your opponent or being more combative, and that's where I think. Yeah.
But, I mean, it is what it is, and it is the way I feel. And I have no interest in returning to this.
Okay.
Which is unusual for me, because I'm usually the one that will stick with games a little bit past where...
Yeah, I think it's really telling that we, again, had to kind of force ourselves through...
Doing our due diligence of playing it
doing our
times.
due diligence numbers of plays.
I mean, we played this 6 times, and I'm done. And that's quite rare for me. Usually I want to play something at least 10 times before I go, I am officially done with this. So, I've given it a 3 because of that.
Oh, really? So I felt, because I have a problem with this game for other reasons, which we will come on to, I felt like I couldn't really score this fairly, so I gave it a 5.
Okay, bang average.
Yeah,
no, I gave it 3 because of the fact that it doesn't pull me back in, it doesn't make me want to play it again, and I do think it's skirting the borderline of being poor value for money if you pay full price for it. So, 3.
Okay, so on to, is it any fun?
Is Basilica any fun? A moderate amount?
So, I think that we have discussed this, and I think I've firmly established now that area of control games are not my forte.
Area control, yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're not, are they?
They're not. I find them really intensely confusing. I can't understand how the scoring works, despite the fact you've explained it to me numerous times. And I'm not stupid, I just have this mental block when it comes to
area control.
Yeah, and I just can't do it. And I think that then adds to my AP as well, and then it adds to my sheer fucking fury when I think I've got something and you're like, no.
Nope.
And it just makes me want to...
Table flip.
Yes. It's the same thing with Scythe, I think.
Yes, it was the same thing.
It's the same sort of similar principle. That I just don't think my head works in that way.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's an incredibly infuriating experience for me. And we just don't have much fun.
I'm just going to keep ordering area control games just to wind you up. No, we have to review it, Hannah, for the podcast. No, I have a moderate amount of fun playing this. I'll start with a good. What I like about this is the ability to mess with your opponent.
Oh, I mean, you really, really enjoy that.
But I like that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm
a huge fan of take that mechanics. I am obviously an arsehole at heart because I just enjoy making the other player suffer a little bit. I love that in board games. I always have. And you can spectacularly mess with people in this.
Yep.
And that is fun for me. I really enjoy that.
From simply just removing a tile, so it means that their huge, big, massive swathe is interrupted, to moving your opponent. There are lots of ways to be able to mess with them very, very simply, and it's non-recoverable. You can't fix it. Like it's once it's done,
it's done. And you can be planning something in your own little bubble, going, "Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this and this," and the opponent comes along with one order and just screws the entire thing up. And you have to start from square one, basically. But that's also a point of caution, because some people will hate that.
Yes.
Some people will really, really hate that. This is quite a mean game.
Yes. And what I would say is when you've got somebody like me who's struggling with just being able to work out where to place a tile, you then come in and then fuck up my game plan.
It's a little bit like kicking a puppy at times.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it is a little bit. I think you should be kinder to me.
Yeah, it should be, yeah. I am, all the time, except when we're playing, games. I really like that about it. I enjoy that aspect of it, but your mileage will very much vary because I know that's very much a personality type thing. Some people absolutely hate that and they will walk away from this immediately. So if you're a person that gets bothered about somebody else playing aggressively, because that's the other thing in this, you have to play aggressively. If you try and play defensively, your opponent's going to roll all over you constantly. You have to try and take areas. You have to get up in each other's grill, because if you don't, you'll probably lose.
So I want to talk about that a bit more under competitiveness.
Okay, fine. You can shelve that and talk about it there.
We'll come back to it. So what did you score it then?
Well, that was the good. I haven't talked about the bad yet.
Okay.
Just like the real life game, I was trying to rush through this review.
No, but I don't though. I spent hours
drawing it out. No, that's the good side of it. The bad side of things is that with all of the strategizing, it can also feel a bit rote depending on what's coming out on the table. You can have a strategy in your head, but it is very much at the mercy of the marketplace. And I have seen it happen to you quite a few times, where you've been playing a really good game, but I've just got a run of 3 tiles that I needed at exact that moment, and I've undone all your plans and made a massive advantage of mine, and that's just happened.
It's really interesting because you like luck in games more than I do, and yet what you're talking about is not liking luck in this game.
No, exactly. Yeah, and it's a weird one because I feel like this game is on the cusp of being a very heady, purely strategic battle of the minds, but that scuppers it a little bit because it can fall that way. And there's not much you can do to mitigate that. It's the nature of the game. And it makes it very difficult to plan more than 2 moves ahead as a result, which kind of undercuts a little bit of the strategic element of it that I think I'd really enjoy if there was a bit more steadiness to that. There was a way to mitigate that somehow.
I mean, I've been in a situation where I've just been pulling orders just in the hope that I get the order that I need in order to be able to do what I want.
I feel like there's something
seems a bit wasted.
Yeah, I feel like there could have been something there around pay your coin to nuke the marketplace, for example. There's no mitigation there. There's nothing there. If you get a bad run or your opponent gets a good run, there's nothing you can do about it, and that deflates it a little bit for me. And that's from somebody who enjoys luck in games. But I enjoy luck when it feels fair. This can often feel very unfair to one person or the other.
Perhaps because your marketplace is relatively small. You only have a marketplace of 3 for each of the
exactly
rows. Lines.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you compare it to something like Carcassonne, or where you don't have a marketplace, you just have 1 tile in your hand, I think the difference there is there's not much you can do to really mess with your opponents. But yeah, if you get a run of 3 good orders at the right time, you can completely take the game away from them. And I just feel like that deflates it a bit for me. So, I mean, overall, I have a bang average time playing this. I've given it 5 as a result.
Yeah, so I gave it a generous 2.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, I do not like
no
this
fun
game.
to be had. For
no,
you.
no, not fun for me.
No. Okay.
And I think actually, in terms of scoring, I don't think I've won a single match.
No, you haven't.
Yeah,
no.
That's how much I hate this game.
Which is a real rarity for us, because if you're a long time... Oh, no. You've been way too kind to me here. Long-time listeners to the podcast will know this. Hannah is better at board games than I am, and tends to win about 2/3 of the games that we play. On average.
Not my game.
No, definitely not your game.
All right, so should we add those up?
Yep. Okay, so as always, we average those out, and that gives us a general score of 5. So... bang average.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely middle of the road.
All right, so then let's talk about this as a 2-player game.
Indeed. So, as you know, one of our criteria is around how does this play with more. In cases like this, where it's a 2-player game or a duel, we just excise that completely, so it's a NA.
Yep. But under our 2-player rating scale, we have table talk. So that's how much discourse we have at the table, getting to know you, shouting at each other, telling people to hurry the fuck up.
Yeah, so those latter 2 things happen more than the other things in this one.
Yeah.
It's mostly Hannah shouting at me and me telling her to hurry up.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's your idea of a good time, a table talk, then.
10 out of 10.
I mean, I think we're being a bit unfair to it here. I think it is quite an interactive game. Not the most interactive.
It's when you play it at the speed it's supposed to be played at.
Yes, yeah. I catch up on my reading when we play, so there's that. No, but in general, it is quite an interactive game. So I think the likelihood of having some decent banter is probably quite high if you are having a good time, which often the case of this, particularly one of us, as you can see from the previous score, is not. So I think that covers a bit, but I'm trying to be a little bit objective here about the game itself and, how much interactivity you have. It's not a multiplayer solitaire by any means.
No.
It definitely is a duel. You are definitely interacting directly with each other. As I said, you have to play quite aggressively in this, and I think, again, that can lead to some quite good bantery times if you're that way inclined. What are your thoughts?
So I don't think there is a huge amount of table talk, so even when we talk about other games that are competitive, you might end up explaining what it is that you're doing or the actions that you're taking. Well, you aren't necessarily doing that with this. It's definitely head to head, and I think you're definitely really engaged with each other and what the other person's doing. It's a shared board space after all. But no, and I think... Yes, there is opportunity for banter because, again, you get to mess with your opponent. But I think those are small moments, and perhaps not all that. Not that they're not all that common. I just don't think it's a main feature of the game. No,
it's definitely not a main feature, and I think I've scored there accordingly. But I think it is there. It is there. This is not a complete play in silence kind of game.
Oh no, but I think you probably could.
I don't think so. I think there's too much interactivity for that.
Yeah, no, I think you probably could.
I disagree. Anyway,
right.
Agree to disagree. What have you scored it then?
So 4.
I gave it a 5, so I'm not scoring it massively highly, but I do think it's there, so I'm not going to give it sort of 1, 2 kind of end of the spectrum. I think it's, again, average.
Okay. And then how competitive it is. So yes.
Yeah.
It is fiercely competitive. You are definitely head-to-head, and you, again, it's the same board space that you're playing over, and you are fighting over your area of control. So there is a huge element of competitiveness. And again, because you can mess with your opponent, that I think automatically adds that real competitive edge to it, and that real aha kind of sensational feeling. Like when you do something, when you do strip a tile away or something like that happens, you just think,
yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's a very good competitive game. Is it a game that you can get better at? Yes. Is it a game that is satisfying to win? If you're having fun, yes. Those are usually my criteria for this. I don't find this immensely satisfying to win, mostly because you're not having a great time when we play it.
And I also just don't think that we're on equal footing either. I think there is just a mental block for me, and I think because of that, yes, I imagine it does feel like you're kicking a puppy. A
little bit,
yeah. However, what's really interesting is you said, you have to be really aggressive. I don't know that you have to.
Is this why you've not won a game yet?
I try and go off and do my own thing.
Shade.
I just try and leave you to your big old massive thing.
Winning the game, yeah. Herein lies my evidence.
I don't understand how to compete, so I try and do my own thing. And then you muscle in on it, and I'm like, go away! I'm building my own thing.
That's exactly my case in point. You can't do that in this.
Oh, okay. So why are you losing?
Yeah.
Right, I want a rematch.
No, I'm good. I 100% stand by it. You have to be very, very aggressive in this game. If you try and do your own thing, you're giving the other person way too much control, and they will win, as has been the case. As Hannah is now dawn. I see the light bulb going off.
I don't understand how many builders I need to have in the area.
More than the other person. Hence the aggressiveness.
You've got all these multipliers on it, and then you've got altars and stained glass windows, and it's all just very confusing.
Okay, fine. I mean, you can play Arkham Horror. I don't really understand why you find this one so hard,
I don't get it either. It's just it's not my game, is it?
No, it's not. But no, I stand by it. You have to be very, very aggressive in this, and if that's not what floats your boat in games, again, beware. If it is what floats your boat in games, by all means, give this a shot, because I think two very engaged people could have some absolute like humdingers and matches with this one. You know, like I think if you find somebody that's on an equal footing to you, you could probably have a really good time with this.
Yeah.
I just think that's not panned out for us for whatever reason. But that doesn't make it less competitive. I think it is a very, very good competitive game.
Yeah, and I think there are competitive games where you can feel really competitive and you're sort of like at odds with each other and you're really fighting for control, but somehow don't feel quite so hostile as this.
Yeah, this is a very, very mean game. It's one of the meanest games I've played.
Yeah.
And it's really surprising, you know, it's a typical like, tile placement, pretty colours and everything. You don't really expect it, but it's really cutthroat. Church building, yeah. It is really, really cutthroat.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to be as mean as it is out the box. When we started playing, I was like, wow, okay, you can really just destroy everything somebody's been working towards in this. This is great. But yeah. Downsides for me are two. Number one, the luck thing, which I've talked about already, so I'm not going to belabor that point, but I do think that's a negative. The other thing I have an issue with, and it's won me several games, but I have an issue with it, is the ×2 promotion. I think it is way too powerful. Not anybody can use it.
Let's just explain what the ×2 thing is.
So there's an order that you can give a promotion to one of your builders. One of those promotions is a ×2, which means that if you win the area, it is worth double points. The problem is it's just too extreme in comparison to everything else that goes on in the game, which means that if you just get one of those in a big area, the game's completely your runaway leader. Especially if you do it in the last round, like there's no chance. It feels unbalanced, and this is me saying this as somebody who's won 3 out of our 6 games via this very mechanic. I just think the swings are too massive.
Yeah.
And even if you were to do it and fail and the other person were to steal it from you, it's still such a massive swing that it upsets the balance of the game completely.
And I think you have to bear in mind that quite often you do end up with very, very large areas because you're both vying for control of this one thing. So it might be a huge swathe of green. And actually having a base score of 8, 9 is not unusual. That's quite common.
No,
and then you double that.
18, 90, 20, you chuck a stained glass window in there. Like it's too big a swing.
Yeah.
To the point that I did play this, and we did actually like this, and we played this more often. I'd probably house rule it and take it away.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it adds much to the game. It takes something away. So yeah, those are my downsides.
Although I played it in the last game and I almost clawed back some of the space between us.
But again, should you be able to do that through one move?
3 squares as well.
Yeah. I just think it upsets the balance. I don't think it belongs there, and I don't know why they put it in there. It feels like one of those things that just lacks a bit of play testing, I guess. So yeah, that's marked it down a little bit for me. But saying that, I've still given this a 7.
Yeah, so I gave it a 7 as well, because I do think you're right when you talked Angry Carcassonne. I think it's a really fantastic way of describing it. Absolutely is, and I think in principle it really could be something quite special.
Yeah, it could be.
It just needs a bit of tweaking.
Yeah, could do with a little bit of tweaking rules-wise, a little bit of tweaking iconography-wise, perhaps a theme that makes a vague amount of sense, and getting rid of that ×2 thing, because I think that really hurts it.
Yeah.
And do all that, and I think you're onto a winner here, but in its current form for us, I don't think so. And as a result, I find it quite difficult to recommend in general.
Okay. Right, so let's add up those scores and see what that leaves us.
Okay, so we add those up and average them out, and that gives us an average of 5.7, so we'll round to a 6.
So interestingly, we think it's about a 2-player game, and we think it's an overall game.
Well, it is a 2-player game, so that kind of makes sense.
Okay, all right, we're taken.
But it's because, basically, I mean, scores are scores, whatever, but it's a lot to do with the fact that it is a good competitive game, and that's pushed it up a little bit. And we don't have that third category, which could bring it up or down, whatever. I'm sure the real proof is in what we've talked about, and you should be able to tell from that whether it's for you or not.
Kind of game for you or not.
So, great. Thank you for joining us, as always. And until next time, have fun, be good to each other, and play lots of board games.